Howdy. Episode 72 opens quite weird. After the intro ends, the literal first frame of the episode is of Pacoon's butt. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. I see what Studio Pierrot was going for with their establishing shot of Pacoon being in the middle, but they could have just not did that. This is also me continuing to overanalyze perhaps the most useless, minute detail of the anime, but I absolutely despise Sakura's jumping form. Her legs are completely straight, and just before landing she bends her left leg but keeps her right leg perfectly straight, then proceeds to jump off of it. That is not how you land. Sakura is literally the only ninja to ever tree hop like that, and I am glad because it looks absolutely ridiculous. Let's get into the story though. Pacoon informs Sakura and Naruto that Sasuke has stopped moving, which likely means that he's caught up to Team Baki. Sakura just goes, it makes much more sense now that she'd be super worried about him since he's about to engage in a potential 3-on-1. I think if it weren't for the curse mark, Sakura wouldn't be nearly as worried as she is since there wouldn't be a chance of Sasuke randomly getting paralyzed like he did in the Forest of Death and against Yoroi. Conversely, Naruto is much more riled up. It's unclear if Naruto is impatient because he doesn't want to miss out on the action, or if he believes Sasuke will die if they are too late. Going off of what we know about Naruto as a character and how he goes,
if Sasuke stopped, it must mean he's caught up to them! Come on!
I'd say it's a combination of both. Something completely meaningless I'd like to point out is how the episode opens with Pacoon leaping away from the viewer. Then for the title screen, Pacoon leaps towards the viewer. Did you think I was lying about my point being meaningless? Because I wasn't. It's been 4 episodes since Sasuke took off after Team Baki, and he's finally caught up. To no surprise, Kankuro and Temari aren't exactly happy to see him. Sasuke, on the other hand, is rocking a thug-life smirk, as if he knows he's going to 1v2 or potentially 1v3 them easily. Kankuro is of the same belief, which is why he thinks this.
Oh man, Gaara, where are you when we need you? You picked a lousy time to be out of commission. This Uchiha kid is trouble.
On my narrative hand, I understand what Kishimoto was going for. Sasuke has been made out to be him ever since he's disappeared from the hospital. When Sasuke returned to the arena, the screen turned white as a 3D leaf floats across the screen. Sasuke and Kakashi then create a mini tornado from their sheer awesomeness as they enter the arena. There's also a bunch of leaves flying all over the place, which definitely weren't laying on the ground before the duo arrived. So in universe, Sasuke and Kakashi would have had to bring the leaves with them simply for dramatic effect, but that's besides the point. The hype behind Sasuke is monstrous. We, along with the crowd, have already seen Naruto, the underdog, the rat of the leaf, defy everyone's expectations by defeating Neji. Even before Naruto channeled Kurama's power, the fact that he was able to outmaneuver Neji is impressive. Sure, Neji was holding back against Naruto, but he was also holding back against Hinata. For context, let me explain. Naruto and Hinata use different fighting styles, and given Naruto's fighting style, it makes sense why Naruto was able to momentarily catch Neji off guard. However, there was a moment during the fight where Neji tried to hit Naruto's chakra point, and Naruto dodges Neji's strike.
Oh no!
I missed?
Naruto very clearly sees Neji's strike coming and does his best to evade it. Towards the end of the fight, Naruto uses Kaioken, and he and Neji display a high level of speed and power. The level of combat prowess displayed was clearly far above that of a Genin. Yet, no one cares. The implication is that while Neji and Naruto's fight was glorious, the meat and potatoes reside in Sasuke and Gaara's fight. To Sasuke's credit, he does meme on Gaara at the beginning of the fight. However, it's at this point that the narrative starts to fall apart. Lee notes that while Sasuke is replicating his speed, it's taking a much higher toll on his body. Combine that with Guy's statement of Sasuke not being as fast as Lee, and it's clear that Sasuke's display isn't more impressive than Lee's. Sasuke burned through a decent portion of chakra during the first half of the fight, and the second half was him using the Chidori, which Kakashi states he's only capable of doing 2 of those a day, not including the use of the curse mark, of course. That brings out the other hand, logic. Sasuke is without a doubt below 50% of his maximum chakra when he confronts Team Baki. Temari is practically out of chakra as we later find out, and Gaara is still incapacitated. But you know who isn't either of those things? Kankuro. Kankuro is at 100% and would only need to nick Sasuke with his poisoned weapons in order to secure the W. Kankuro and Temari are ranged fighters and could combine their strengths to stave off Sasuke's attacks without needing to move at all. There's literally nothing Sasuke could do that would allow him to defeat Kankuro and Temari simultaneously. Sasuke also couldn't assassinate Gaara, since anything Sasuke throws would just be blown away by Temari. We saw in Sasuke's fight versus Temari that Sasuke held back in order to conserve chakra. He'll obviously fight harder in this scenario, but will ultimately need to conserve some chakra if he's going to fight Gaara. In hindsight, Shino arrives after Sasuke fights Temari, so he'd likely show up towards the beginning of this fight, which would change things. However, Sasuke, Temari, and Kankuro are unaware of Shino's presence, so that changes nothing. Knowing that Temari is practically out of chakra, Kankuro essentially condemned her to death by letting her stay behind to slow down Sasuke. Kankuro does argue with Temari because he knows how stupid of an idea it is to leave her, but that doesn't stop him from leaving. Those were the points I wanted to make. It took a little bit to lay everything out, but let me know y'all's thoughts down in the comments. The next scene is flat out goofy now that I'm analyzing it. Kankuro is shown body flicking at the start of his escape, but after that, he just hops from branch to branch. Sasuke sees Kankuro take off and throws some kunai in an attempt to stop him. Kankuro makes zero attempt to dodge the kunai, and afterwards Sasuke goes, "Damn." Which means two things. One, our buddy Sasuke flat out missed. Kankuro isn't body flicking away from our perspective, so it's not like he's moving at high speeds. It gets even worse if you consider this to be Sasuke's perspective, because that means even if Kankuro is body flicking away, he's not moving super fast as Sasuke. 2. Remember how Baki threw some kunai at Sasuke when he was leaving the tournament arena, which resulted in Genma throwing some kunai to intercept him? Yeah, Temari didn't do any of that. Either she had complete faith in Kankuro dodging or Sasuke missing, because she just stands there and watches. She easily could have blown away the kunai with some of her wind too. So after Kankuro escapes with Gaara, Sasuke briefly follows in pursuit before Temari intercepts him with her wind. She then strikes a defensive pose and thinks this:
Bad timing. I would have to face this Uchiha kid when my chakra is almost gone. I'm in real trouble if he uses his Sharingan. I've got to force him to waste a lot of his chakra and quickly. It's my only chance.
Her assessment is 100% correct. She doesn't have much of a chance against Sasuke, but that doesn't matter so long as she slows him down enough for Gaara to recover. That should be her top priority, since Gaara is more important to the mission than she is. However, no one wants to die if they don't have to, so option B would be to keep her distant and wear Sasuke down as much as possible while not taking any major risks. Her plan is foolproof. Unfortunately, she proves herself to be a fool, but we'll get to that later. Okay, so remember how Sasuke is supposed to be a tactical genius? Well, this next scene from Sasuke is so contrived that it completely craps on that notion.
Should I use the Chidori and try to take her out quickly? Hell, why not?
What? Why? If you don't understand why that line is so contrived, allow me to explain. The only reason why Sasuke said that line is because of what Temari just said. Her whole bit about being low on chakra and the only way to win is to force Sasuke to consume a lot of his chakra is why Studio Pierrot had Sasuke think about using the Chidori. Sasuke being cocky and wanting to be flashy is in character. However, Sasuke having zero combat IQ is not within the confines of his character. Instead of telling you again, I'm just gonna show you.
So, looks like you're good for 2 bursts. That's about your limit.
So with that in mind, why on earth would Sasuke think that using the Chidori to quickly defeat Temari would be a good idea? And that's just one of the issues with Sasuke's plan, by the way. In order for Sasuke to use the Chidori, he has to telegraph from a mile away that he's about to use it. So dear viewer, you may be wondering, why is Sasuke telegraphing the Chidori such a big problem? After all, he's way faster than Temari, so can't he just speed blitz her? Well, yes, you'd be right, except for you're wrong. Sasuke and Temari are currently battling on tree branches. Even if Sasuke whipped out his Chidori with the swiftness, the battle arena isn't the same as when he fought Gaara. Even if it was, Temari isn't Gaara. Gaara threw some sand spikes at Sasuke, of which he was able to dodge using his Sharingan. If we put Tamari in Gaara's position, Sasuke still wouldn't be able to speed blitz her. Tamari with full chakra would very easily blow Sasuke away if he ran at her in a straight line. While the current situation is different, it's only worse for Sasuke since they're fighting in the trees. Sasuke can't do Chidori and Blitz because he'd have to leap into the air, which would leave him completely vulnerable to Tamari's wind. Maybe, just maybe, Sasuke could propel himself forward, hold out his hand, and cut through Tamari's wind to strike her. But wind countering lightning might make up for the difference in chakra potency, and Sasuke would still be left with 0 chakras, so he wouldn't be able to pursue Gaara anyway. The fight between Tamari and Sasuke commences, and I couldn't help but notice Tamari didn't stick to her plan very well. Dare I say, at all. She literally just said her win con was to drain Sasuke's chakra. One could interpret that as her deciding it'd be best to play defensively, since she is currently positioned between Sasuke and Gaara. According to my observation, she's currently launching a bunch of wind attacks at Sasuke, aka playing offensively, which means she's consuming a lot of her own chakra while Sasuke is preserving his chakra, since all he's doing is evading Tamari's attacks by hiding in the trees. She even notes this.
He's holding back, saving his chakra for Gaara.
So she understands exactly what Sasuke is doing. She thinks the fight won't last long if she's playing offense and all Sasuke is doing is playing defense. But I don't understand how that's true because she's not dealing any damage and there's no way she can keep that up. Once again, she is low on chakra. Sasuke realizes the fight is dragging on, so he decides to get serious. Tamari recognizes that, for some reason decides to watch him weave hand signs, allowing him to fire his Phoenix Flower Jutsu at her. Which, okay. She can conserve chakra by not using her wind style. The problem is she jumps out of the trees and lands on the ground. That was probably the worst possible thing she could have done. I guess she wasn't worried since she knew she could just repel his fire style with her wind style. But she gave him the high ground, and as we know from Star Wars, it's a really bad idea to surrender the high ground. Tamari thinks she got Sasuke to slip up, yes, pun intended by the way, so she blitzes him and throws 3 kunai into his torso, thinking she killed him. With her guard completely lowered, she falls prey to Sasuke's substitution explosive seal combo. To Tamari's credit, from her point of view, Sasuke thought he was shepherding Tamari to the ground where she'd be exposed, but in actuality, she allowed herself to be led to the ground so she could lead Sasuke to one of the branches she made sand on, which would cause him to slip and be exposed to a lethal blow. Tamari was certainly cooking, but she forgot to read the last step of the recipe, where it stated Sasuke predicted her prediction, so he was never really in any danger at all. Of course, none of that would have happened if Tamari stayed true to her plan and didn't try to rush anything. I think Tamari also forgot that she's a trained ninja and could have easily just thrown the kunai from her position on the ground and still would have hit Sasuke with the kunai without being right next to him. It is an anime though, so naturally she has to look Sasuke in the eye before she ends him, just to meme on him a little bit. Something I find interesting is Sasuke doesn't finish off Tamari. He had the perfect opportunity to, but instead he just goes,
"Gotta run. I've wasted way too much time on you already."
which got me thinking. Why would Sasuke spare Tamari in this situation? Genma did only order Sasuke to finish off Gaara, but surely it's deeper than that, right? The kunai Sasuke started off with would have killed her if she hadn't deflected them, and Sasuke's fire style also would have killed her if she didn't disperse his flames. So what gives? Simply saying because plot isn't a good reason if it's at the cost of a character losing their characterization. Sloppy writing like that is how you get plot-induced stupidity, character-induced stupidity, or writer-induced stupidity. I don't think Sasuke has killed anyone up to this point, but it would make sense to get his first blood now, since Tamari is going to get back up and be a potential nuisance while he's fighting Gaara. Personally, I think this is foreshadowing for Shippuden Sasuke when he refused to ruthlessly kill, even when Orochimaru ordered him to. A decision Sasuke makes at the end of the series also reflects his current morals. I think all of this ties into him not wanting to be like Itachi. Let me know what y'all think down in the comments. Okay, we're finally back to the Kage Royale. We get a recap of what happened at the end of the last episode, but things aren't completely the same. The voice lines line up, but the music is different. E71 plays Orochimaru's fight music, while E72 plays a more ominous track that I couldn't find on YouTube. Here's what the two sound like.
What the hell's going on? What the hell's going on?
If you pass the perception check, you also notice that the roof was redone in E72. Here's a side-by-side comparison. It's not just the roof that's different either. As shown in these shots, the barrier is lighter and the background is different, which makes sense since episode 71 was a higher budget episode after all. The rest of their interaction is the same as episode 71. After the recap is finished, Hiruzen has a flashback of when he raided Orochimaru's lab alongside the Anbu Black Ops. In case you didn't notice, Hiruzen is notably younger in the flashback. It's kinda hard to tell just from looking at his face, well, unless you pause it. But an easy way to gauge his age is by examining the color of his beard. Going off the color of his beard, Hiruzen is at least a few decades younger than he is currently. With that said, Orochimaru comparing present Hiruzen to this past Hiruzen makes so little sense since there's no way Hiruzen would be anywhere near his younger self as an old man. Hiruzen was 69 years old when he died and was likely in his mid-30s when he raided Orochimaru. That is a pretty substantial gap if you ask me. The manga portrays Hiruzen much older than the anime does though. Hiruzen doesn't have the word on his face, but he's still rather old. After approaching the final door, Hiruzen motions the Anbu agents to storm the room. Once inside, Hiruzen and the agents see Orochimaru in the middle of an experiment. It'd be a complete understatement to say that the anime watered down this scene. The anime only shows a bunch of jars with random liquid and floating objects in them, alongside some storage units. The manga, however, well, let's just say it's abundantly clear that Orochimaru is guilty. Hiruzen, being understandably distraught, asks Orochimaru what's the meaning behind his actions, to which Orochimaru replies,
"And after I set all those booby traps to give me plenty of warning, I wasn't expecting you. I should have known you could get past anything."
That tells us that Orochimaru set some fairly elaborate traps that, at the very least, should have notified him of an intruder. That really speaks to Hiruzen's abilities since, according to Orochimaru, only someone of his caliber would have been able to disarm all of them. Given that information, the Anbu honestly shouldn't even be inside the dungeon, since they'd only get in Hiruzen's way. After Orochimaru dodges Hiruzen's question, the Anbu agents start to grill him. Or at least, they try to grill him, but it doesn't go too well.
A steady flow of people have gone missing from the village. Genin, Chunin, even Anbu Black Ops. Many of them were last seen with you. And you've been acting rather strange lately.
You, a superior shinobi, how could you have done such a thing?
Now I'll have to kill you as well.
After a bit of back and forth, Orochimaru reveals that he's been developing jutsu. Considering the nature of his experiments, Hiruzen easily deducts that Orochimaru is researching forbidden jutsu. Naturally, Hiruzen asks Orochimaru what exactly is he trying to discover, which Orochimaru replies, "I want to acquire all jutsu and grasp all of this world's principles." And thus did the fellow who first mixed blue and yellow, named the newly curated color green. I wish to do the same. Say blue is chakra, then yellow is signs, and green is jutsu. Just as there are an infinite number of colors, so are there thousands, if not tens of thousands of jutsu out in the world. However, in order to obtain each and every jutsu that exists and the principles behind them, I need a long time. And he who masters all is truly worthy of the title, the Ultimate Being. For me, the lifespan of the flesh is much too short. Even if I had become Hokage, for once one is dead, it's all over. Orochimaru then finishes his response to Hiruzen with,
Oh, I think you've already guessed. Eternal youth and immortality.
Their conversation seamlessly continues in the present day, with Orochimaru explaining exactly how the immortality jutsu works. Before we move on though, I want to point out some subtle foreshadowing the anime decided to leave out. In the manga, the first panel we see of the present is of a shot of Orochimaru's back with his sword firmly in the ground. The imagery displays Orochimaru's sword going through Hiruzen. The anime just has the camera pan down and shows Hiruzen with no sword in sight. I don't know how long this has been going on for, but I just noticed this. How exactly is the wind blowing through Orochimaru's hair right now? They're surrounded by a chakra barrier. The only way it's possible for the wind to be blowing inside of the dome is if the dome for some reason doesn't block out natural wind. The barrier only blocking chakra-infused wind would make that barrier some tuning level ninja are using much more advanced than it already is. When I originally spoke about the barrier, I didn't even consider the fact that you could trap someone inside of it and suffocate them, but apparently that's not an option anyway. I don't think that's what Kishimoto was going for though, so I'm pretty sure it's just a mistake on Studio Parrot's part. Orochimaru continues monologuing, and at the end of his speech, he mentions that the leaf prepared his next body. Hiruzen immediately connects the dots, deciphering that the individual Orochimaru is referring to is none other than Sasuke Uchiha. What's crazy is that Hiruzen then asks Orochimaru how many bodies he has snatched, and he replies with,
2 or 3 perhaps.
Orochimaru is clearly still fighting the mental battle against Hiruzen. There's no way Orochimaru would forget how many times he's transferred. He's just trying to be creepy and show Hiruzen how twisted his student has become, likely to play off of Hiruzen's regret of not finishing him off in the past. It's much more clear in the manga because instead of saying,
2 or 3 perhaps, but I'll wait for Sasuke until he's ripened a bit, and then when he's been raised and trained to my liking.
Orochimaru says, this is only the second one, I think, and I plan on grooming Sasuke a bit more to my taste before possessing him. Heh heh. That sounds much more vile. The face Orochimaru is making while he says that doesn't help either. In fact, he looks quite disturbed. To further solidify his freak-like nature, Orochimaru asks Hiruzen which face he wants to see last, before putting back on his original face. Right after Orochimaru puts his face back on, Hashirama juices up his deep forest emergence, which would have one-shot Hiruzen had Enma not formed an adamantine cage around him. That's when Enma asks,
What's wrong with you? This isn't like you. I'm sorry.
From this, we can gather that Orochimaru's mental attack worked on Hiruzen once again. Before Orochimaru took his face off, Hiruzen was about to power up and get her done. Now he's reduced to the same nerve state he was in at the beginning of their fight. While in his nerve state, Hiruzen can't help but to think back when he originally confronted Orochimaru once again. Flashback Hiruzen has a flashback in which he thinks about when Orochimaru was a wee lad. In his flashback, Hiruzen thinks back to how he could have nipped Orochimaru's malice in a bud. I'll read what he said in the manga. Pupils who concealed malice and ambition. I had picked up that you had such foundations within you. I knew and yet pretended I hadn't noticed because it was still an era of conflict and you were a powerfully talented genius, the likes of which is only seen once every few decades. I had hoped you would inherit my will and strength. That's what I wished. And thus my indulgences have wrought about these circumstances, both then and now. Hiruzen regrets his decision not to act on his wisdom, but let's be real, it wouldn't have been an easy decision to make anyway. They were living in an era of conflict, and stifling one of your best warriors because he may turn out to be bad isn't an easy call to make. After all, if Hiruzen did act on his intuition, what would he have done? Pull up on Orochimaru Gary Skywalker style? I know this scene doesn't have the same ramifications as the Isildur and Elrond in Mount Doom scene, but when I hear,
Kill him, Sarutobi! Now is your chance!
And Hiruzen just stands there, I can't help but think of,
Destroy it! Cast it into the fire! Destroy it! No.
While we're here, let's talk about the subtle difference between the manga and the anime. In the manga, Orochimaru casts his jutsu which doesn't appear to damage anybody. Instead, blood from the bodies hanging on the wall is splattered around and Team Hiruzen is knocked down. That makes Orochimaru's wind-style jutsu much weaker than his anime depiction, since he didn't kill the Anbu agents. In the anime, we see the jars in the wall, but there aren't any dead bodies that could produce the blood, yet we still see blood get splattered. When we're shown what would be the manga panel equivalent, the Anbu agents are barely visible. We only see their legs and they are motionless, which heavily applies that they got eviscerated by Orochimaru's jutsu. Instead of everyone being knocked on the ground, Hiruzen remains standing, seemingly unfazed. I honestly like the anime's depiction better. Having Hiruzen remain standing after Orochimaru's jutsu with a troubled stance really sells the idea that Hiruzen is completely capable of dealing with Orochimaru, but is unable to bring himself to do it. Another aspect that makes the anime better is when Orochimaru looks back. Hiruzen sees Orochimaru as a mostly innocent child that was a part of his squad way back when. The manga just shows Hiruzen looking at adult Orochimaru, which doesn't quite hit the same. After Hiruzen snaps back to reality, he immediately creates 2 shadow clones to assist him. The Anbu captain and Orochimaru question Hiruzen's decision to use shadow clones since he doesn't have chakra to waste. Enma, on the other hand, has a good idea of what Hiruzen is doing. After seeing Hiruzen's sequence of hand signs, Enma knows exactly what Hiruzen's plan is. So, this has nothing to do with Naruto, but imagine if instead of the OG Reaper appearing, Ryuk did instead. Arguably, the only reason why the Reaper Death Seal works is because, as Hiruzen explains, only the caster can see the Reaper. Otherwise, I can't imagine Orochimaru getting soul snatched as easily as he did. Considering Orochimaru says this,
"Whatever you're planning, it's too late. It's over. I've won."
He also didn't recognize Hiruzen's hand signs, which is good for the sake of the story, since there's literally no reason for Orochimaru to know about the Reaper Death Seal. After Orochimaru finishes his line, Tobirama uses the Genjutsu known as Infinite Darkness. Tobirama possessing this jutsu makes sense since he was determined to find ways to counter the Sharingan. However, the manga has Hachirama cast the Infinite Darkness instead. It's not a huge deal since they technically could both know the jutsu, but it's just one of those changes that doesn't really have an apparent purpose. Once the jutsu takes full effect, Orochimaru begins to taunt Hiruzen. Hiruzen then starts getting brutalized by an unseen foe. Hiruzen doesn't fall over so easily this time around though. Instead, he remains steadfast, replying to Orochimaru with,
"You've never understood that it's far more than a mere cluster of huts."
We're then shown a sequence of Hiruzen's memories. The memories start with Hiruzen as a kid and goes forward through time, showing the various generations. At the end of Hiruzen's memories, Hiruzen solidifies what he said in episode 56 to Iruka-sensei and his class.
"So, do you have people like that too?"
Well, I have my grandson, Konohamaru, and I also have all the people in this village.
The conclusion to anime Hiruzen's speech hit harder for me. Granted, the manga didn't have much space to add text on top of the panels, but that doesn't make what I said less true.
These people are precious to me. We share a home. We share a life. And though we may not share ties of blood, they are precious to me. They are my family.
It's definitely a case of the voice actor acting. The music, Hokage, served its role perfectly as well. In response to Hiruzen's speech, Orochimaru says this,
"The pillar of your village, a pillar full of termites and rot. I don't have to knock you down. You're already falling."
To which Hiruzen replies,
"You can't stop it by destroying me. A new and stronger Hokage will take my place, becoming the pillar, roof, and walls that defend the village."
I'm definitely on Hiruzen's side here. Orochimaru's statement implies Hiruzen is withering away due to his old age, and once he's gone, Konoha will be completely defenseless since there will be no replacement for Hiruzen. Which just isn't true. Orochimaru is aware that Tsunade and Jiraiya exist. While they may not be as powerful as Hiruzen, they are perfectly capable of serving as Hokage. Although, Orochimaru probably has been paying attention to them in recent times. He probably wasn't even aware that Jiraiya is in the village, but due to writer-induced stupidity, he isn't on the battlefield. Before moving on, the anime shows a sad depiction of Minato after Hiruzen says if he falls, another pillar will take his place. Instead of thinking anything pertaining to the 4th Hokage, Hiruzen finishes vocalizing his speech to Orochimaru. In the manga, Minato looks pissed off, and after imagining him, Hiruzen thinks, "Right, 4th Hokage." which is, I don't know, it just doesn't flow well to me. Hiruzen's silence when he pictures Minato speaks volumes more than him thinking, right, Fourth Hokage? At least it does in my book. Hiruzen concludes his speech with,
"Get ready, for I'm about to perform a jutsu that even you haven't seen before. Behold, Sealing Jutsu, Reaper Death Seal!"
I like the way Hiruzen decided to flex on him that is a jutsu that he doesn't know, since Orochimaru desires to collect every jutsu in existence. Like the video if you made it this far to help it reach more of our fellow shinobi. Doses.